Well guys, we got to chat. I was taught from a very young age by my awesome parents to always use protection. They taught me if you want to be successful in life and not come across any speed bumps or calamities, you got to use protection. So last year, I had already had the baby and I decided it was time to buy 100 shares of NUSI. NUSI, or NUSI, provides monthly income, pretty high actually, pretty good return, and it claims downside protection. Now we're in February 2022, and I don't know about you guys, but my portfolio is red. It is going lower and lower every day. And you know what? NUSI is not any different. So where is that downside potential? Well, that's what today's video is going to be about. If you're new to the channel, I'm Matthew Muniz. I do weekly content on anything money related. So if you work hard for your money and you want your money to go further and last you longer, make sure you smash the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and we're going to keep providing the weekly content. So in this video, we're going to talk about what exactly NUSI is, just a quick little breakdown. And then we're going to talk about the little nuances inside of NUSI that makes it so that you really don't get that much downside protection. They should almost change the name from downside protection to recession protection or depression protection. Because the only way that NUSI's protective collar is going to do anything for you is if there is a massive crash. And even though everyone's portfolios are hemorrhaging cash right now, it does not qualify for any aid from NUSI. Now at the end of the video, I'll go over my personal opinion on NUSI, what I'm going to do with my current holdings. And one last thing before we get into this video, as with all of my videos, I am not a financial advisor. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is up to you guys to gather information from multiple sources and form your own opinion and make an educated decision based off that. So let's get into the video. So first things first, what exactly is NUSI? Well, let's take a look. So I've done videos on this in the past, but just a quick breakdown. As you can see here, NUSI is a risk-managed approach that seeks to generate income and provide downside protection. Now what that means is NUSI is very similar to Q-Yield, a popular income ETF, where they write covered call options on the Nasdaq 100 index. The goal for both of them is very similar, where they want to generate high monthly income. However, NUSI also wants to mitigate portfolio volatility. And the way they do that is with their protective collar or their downside protection. At least that's what they claim. So we need to talk a little more in depth about how these premiums work on a monthly basis. So we know that the premiums come from the covered call options, and a portion of that goes to the investors. A portion of that is also used to purchase a protective put, and then whatever's left over just goes back into the underlying assets. However, let's talk about that protective put, because this is where NUSI advertises downside protection, but I feel like that statement isn't really a good description of what they're doing. And the reason for that is the downside protection that they purchase are only if there's a market correction of more than 10% in general, because usually NUSI will buy 10% put options. What that means is the strike price set for a certain date, which is usually the third Friday of the month, is 10% below the current asset value of the underlying index. So for instance, if QQQ were to drop by 15%, then those put options would do well and it would essentially pump the brakes on the loss. You wouldn't lose any more money than that 10%. But the problem is, it's pretty rare for the index to drop that much, and it also, based on the dates, the index can go down and then come back up. So it's not necessarily that the index dropped 15% and all of a sudden you're in the clear. No, it depends on the strike date. And what we could see that's happened in these past few months is the index has dropped close to 10%, but not enough. So really, NUSI is just going down with the rest of the market. You look at Q-Yield, you look at QQQ, both of those have gone down around 10%, as has NUSI and as has my own shares. So just as an example, you can look right here, it's kind of hard to see, but I'll zoom in, is you can see that they had a NASDAQ 100 index put, expires on 12/17, and the exercise price was $14,825. So it was purchased a month before that, but let's go ahead and look at that. So on December 17th, if the index was below that 14,800, then we would have been getting some downside protection. However, it was 15.8. A month prior, November 17th, we were at 16,000. So even though we went from 16,000 down to 15,000 and lost asset value, NUSI really didn't do anything for us. All we did was lose the monthly premiums. Now, I'm not saying that NUSI's protective collar is completely useless. However, I am saying that I believe it's slightly impractical. If they had a tighter collar or an out-of-the-money put option that was at 3 to 5%, then maybe that would work a little bit better in terms of downside protection. However, there's downsides to that as well, because then it would cost more money to buy that put. Another option they could do is, instead of monthly put options, maybe they're settled every single week. So you have a shorter time window for the index to maneuver. That could be an option as well, but then once again, you're paying more money. All I'm saying is when it comes to downside protection, the only protection you're getting from NUSI in general is going to be from a massive crash. And that has happened in the past. In March of 2020, during COVID, when everything dropped 30 to 40%, NUSI, its protective collar, did kick in, and it only dropped 13% for its overall asset value. However, we have to remember that NUSI is an income ETF, which means you really shouldn't be purchasing NUSI for the actual asset value. You should be purchasing NUSI for monthly income. So if you're retired, it's probably more for someone like you. So basically, all in all, when it comes to the way that NUSI's downside protection works, potential catalysts that could happen in the future that would cause a massive crash would be when the feds go to raise interest rates. Maybe they decide to raise it by 5%. That would never happen. But if they did something ridiculous like that, you could be pretty certain that technology stocks, which are weighted very heavily in the Nasdaq 100, will come crashing down. And that's where NUSI would perform very well. However, in the opposite, it's unlikely that NUSI would benefit because NUSI has a cap on its upside potential. Now, it's not like Q yield where it's 100% capped. The good news is since NUSI is actively managed, and they do charge you a 0.68% expense ratio for this, they have the option to close out their call contracts early if they know that the underlying assets are going to continue to rise. So if all of a sudden the feds decide to lower interest rates and we know that stocks are going to skyrocket, then that's what they would do. And we could participate in some of that upward movement, whereas Q yield cannot do that. So all in all, my opinion is NUSI is a great ETF to do exactly what it's intended, which is to protect you from a market crash, not to protect you from minor dips. If it's dipping, just keep buying. That's what I'm doing. Actually, I'm almost out of money from buying the dip. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue using it as a small portion of my portfolio just to give me a little bit of diversification. I'm going to continue to DCA in, or dollar cost average, whether it's low or high, because that doesn't matter. When it comes time for me to use the monthly income, then I'll have a relatively stable monthly income coming from NUSI along with my other dividend stocks. So hopefully after this video you get a little bit more understanding of how NUSI's protective collar works, because I've watched a lot of videos on NUSI and nobody really talks about that. They don't talk about the idea of NUSI, which is monthly income and protection. But as you can see by my portfolio, we're not getting that right now. If you found anything useful in the video, make sure you smash the like button. Comment down below if you have any questions or concerns or if you want to add anything. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Take care.